welcome to everybody with Coffee Chats with Jess. First of all, before I start, I just wanted to say that today we're going to be focusing on patterns of thoughts and behavior. And before we start with our inspirational speaker, Michelle, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of the event. So I'm going to share my screen. If I can just have a thumbs up if you can see it, that would help me a lot. Perfect. So basically, Coffee Chats with Jess, we're on our 5th session, so it's bittersweet for me, quite honestly, that at this point, we are going to be focusing on a few things today. I'm going to ask Michelle a few questions, and additional to that, there's a few things we'd like to cover. So the first thing is the aim of these events was to provide people with insights into themselves and their interactions with others to better adapt and overcome challenging or unknown situations. This in turn allows us to be free from our own irrational views, perceptions of ourselves and others, and as human beings, we have to evolve and expand into better versions of ourselves. So my biggest goal is to help individuals understand their patterns of thoughts, identify their patterns of thoughts. Are they positive? Are they negative? Where are they coming from? What are these patterns? Understanding their patterns of behavior, identifying if patterns of behavior are positive or negative, and becoming free from self-limiting beliefs and becoming free from bad behavioral patterns. So basically, if you ask me why patterns, the reality is that patterns exist everywhere. It's around everything we do. Life itself is nothing but a pattern in the big spectrum of things. I chose to understand patterns, or I'm on this journey of understanding patterns, because I'd like to explain how being free from smoking had to do with breaking free from a thought and behavioral patterns. And I did this all through lockdown. I stopped smoking, and I had been smoking for about 13 years, a box a day. So I just want Michelle to explain, what is these things? How did this happen? Because I don't know what happened, but it happened. I see patterns as being something that is repetitive and follows a specific flow or pattern over a long period of time. Patterns are everywhere in books, humans, the ecosystem, etc. But we live such busy lives and unconsciously that we don't really pay attention to our patterns, whether it's of our thoughts or our behaviors. So in my opinion, it's about understanding that default pattern, that default that you go to when you think or you behave in a certain manner. Then we cluster these default patterns into positives and negatives, and then we see how we can change those negatives into positives. So that's just a little bit about why I want to do this and how I led up to connecting with Michelle. So basically, I want to kick it off by, first of all, saying welcome to everyone on the chat once again, and welcome to Michelle. And from my side, Michelle, my heart is forever grateful for this opportunity and for you being part of my journey and building this collective awareness together. So first and foremost, I want to give a little introduction about Michelle. She basically is an inspirational and instinctive human being. Michelle, her husband, and her daughter share an old chapel on the edge of a tiny little village in a rural Derbyshire. Is that how I say it?
Derbyshire.
Derbyshire. There we go. That's my South African accent coming through. Derbyshire. Her young family moved to the UK in 2015 with 6 bags of clothes and big dreams. Born in Namibia and growing up in South Africa, Africa is in her blood. She's a psychometrist with an honors degree in psychology, a certificate in the administration of deceased estates and PGCE, and has experience in psychological assessments and all things psychology. So it's only obvious why I connected with Michelle. Michelle started her own business, which is Instinctive Living, officially in 2018. She simply loves learning. In the past years, she's learned about search engine optimization and helping businesses get seen online. Then in one of Michelle's quotes that stuck with me and resonated with me was, courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. And that's a quote from our Nelson Mandela. So without any further ado and without any delays, Michelle, welcome to the chat. Thank you so much for giving me your time. I understand we're all busy. It's crazy, weird times right now, but this is such a beautiful space for me to have a chat with you, have people gain the knowledge that we hold, and it's all about creating that collective awareness. So welcome. And I'm very excited, and let's just let it flow organically. And I'm going to ask you a few questions throughout the chat. And basically, if anybody has any questions, we can just take it from there. So first and foremost, Michelle, how would you define patterns? What are patterns? Where do we even start?
Well, thank you. Thanks, Jess. It is amazing. I've been going through a bit of a journey on this, looking at how to explain patterns and kind of trying to put it down into words. And I think anybody that's got an interest in psychology can understand how patterns are a part of our lives. Because
Yes.
if we look at personality, it's really just our traits. It reflects people's characteristics, patterns of thought. These are all things that we measure when we do psychological assessment. We look at, for example, you said earlier you're an extrovert. So why are you an extrovert? Because there are certain patterns that you follow. You like interacting with people, or you like certain things. I'm more an introvert, or I'm an ambivert. So I'm going towards the introvert side more because I like more the quiet, or the, not talking so much. But these are all patterns of things that we do, because patterns are repetitive actions and tasks and behaviors.
Okay, awesome. So have our patterns, so this is like the obvious question in this specific time is, would you say our patterns of thoughts and behavior have changed during this pandemic? And, you know, if you can maybe explain it in terms of thoughts, and if you could explain it in terms of behavior, have they changed? How have they changed? And yeah, what's your opinion on that?
Oh, greatly. I think our lives have changed, and therefore our patterns have changed. You don't have to, my life as such hasn't changed as much, because I work from home, I'm online, but now I have all these other people online as well. Everybody else's lives or routines have changed. They don't have to hop on the train in the mornings anymore. They don't have to go out there to work. It's a complete change of scenery within, thought patterns. Thought patterns, I think, mostly dealing with this crazy time. Like you drive down the road and there are people in masks in cars, or there are people in the shop and they're all wearing masks, and you think back a year ago, you wouldn't have even thought about it. So it's how we now approach this. I don't want to say new normal, because I hate that term.
So do I.
It's this new reality.
That's brilliant. Yeah, new reality.
Yeah. There's no more of that kind of rush. But sadly, people miss that. So it's especially in the first lockdown. As we're going into the second lockdown tomorrow, I think it's a little bit of a different perspective. But on our first lockdown, it was for me quite freeing, because we had the right to have our family at home on a Monday at 2:00 in the afternoon, or we could build vegetable gardens and create our space, which we were never really allowed before, because we had to be part of the rush and get to work and fulfill these roles that we were supposed to fulfill, where we've been granted a little bit more freedom now to create ourselves, which is very daunting for a lot of people, because there's no structure, or the structure that they used to is gone.
And that will change how they think about things, how they behave or react to certain things.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Joe Dispenza is, for example, someone that I find quite interesting. And according to him, research in neuroscience has shown that 95% of our of who we are by the age of 35 is a memorized set of behaviors.
That just blew my mind. That's amazing.
You wake up in the morning, you switch your phone off, or you get up and you go to the loo, or you have your pattern of behaviors that you follow, and you don't really realize it anymore because you're going onto an autopilot.
I get that. Okay. And tell me, Michelle, now you've just said something, and it's like, this is the organic part of this whole conversation, is routine versus pattern. How do we, is there is there like a difference between the two, in your opinion?
I think the routine is the pattern we choose. So,
sorry, I'm gonna stop smiling.
there is a difference, I think. Our pattern is the things that we've put out, but the routine would be the way that we fit that pattern into our day.
Oh, so amazing.
For example, in a certain, we're an extrovert. So now I need to do things in a certain way for me to express my extroversion. I need to,
Okay, amazing.
About that.
Amazing. That's amazing. And you're so right. When I was unemployed for about 6 months, when coming to the UK, and then lockdown happened and all of that. And that's when I started thinking about the self-liberation and that freedom concept. Because for once in our lives, we've been given that opportunity to be free. And then we panic because we don't have anyone telling us what to do. We don't have routines in place. We have to figure that all out. And we just have that thing, that special thing in life, which is called time. We've got that special thing. And some people used it, some people didn't. And that's just the reality of it. Is what do we do? What do we do with that time? How do we go about it? So I know I need some sort of routine. So some sort, and maybe that could be coming because of my patterns. Like you said, it's amazing how you've explained it based on that reference you made. So the next thing I wanted to ask you is, how do we even identify patterns of thoughts? And then on the second side of it is, how do I identify patterns of behavior? Can we see them?
I actually just want to go back for a second on your point on time. I've been listening to Eckhart Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle.
Yes, his book Power of Now. So I have it on Audible, and I haven't really listened to it for a while. And he was talking about time today, and it is his take on it. I don't know if you've read the book or listened to his take on it.
A very long time ago, yes.
Yeah. So I actually wrote it down that time is an illusion. So the only way that we can really get rid of this, we're so used to anxiety, aren't we? Because it's part of our society. We get anxious because now we don't have structure, or we get anxious because now we have too much time, or we get anxious because we can't go out, or we can't, and it's only because we see time as something of importance, while his theory is that it's an illusion, and the only thing that exists is now. So if you look at time, and it's past and future, and there's no now. And he relates it to ego, where with ego there is no present; it's only past and future.
That's
and that's
crazy.
why it's quite a thing to kind of get your head around, though. And I think that's what regular meditation helps you with, to kind of become nothing and nobody and in no time.
Which is amazing, because that's when you in the most stillness, if that makes sense.
Yes.
That most stillest, it's called, based on these chats, I've learned so much. It's like that perfect awareness, they call it.
Yes.
That perfect awareness of, I felt that feeling before. I think I've mentioned it in 1 or 2 of my chats. I've felt that feeling where you're on the yoga mat and your whole body just sinks into the ground, and you just feel, I felt light. I felt like a feather. I couldn't explain that feeling. And I felt that. And that that moment that it just hit me that I'm in the present moment. And it took me,
Yes,
I was
because
there.
you're not in your body, are you? You are in you nothing, no thing. And we're so used to, we bound to this. I can't remember whose quote it was, but he talks about our meat suit. Bound to this meat suit and time and things that it's not you. You
Yeah.
are more than that. But to move away from it is a little bit more difficult.
A bit more challenging. It's breaking those patterns.
That's it, yeah. And becoming conscious. So living in full consciousness is quite a challenge.
And if anyone doesn't know how me and myself and Michelle actually got into this, I asked the one question of, do we live consciously or unconsciously most of the time? And that's how we spoke for hours on end about this. I remember. So it's 100% true in what you're saying. So Michelle, how do we do this? How do we identify these patterns if we would like to change them? So we have that, say for example, hypothetically, I have awareness that some thoughts about a certain thing is not doing me good. And my behavior around certain things is not doing me good. For example, if I always use my husband in these chats because he's so okay with it. The poor man, he's fine with it. I've asked him for permission. But some things that you would do, in a relationship, it's not doing that relationship any good, the way you're behaving or the way you're thinking about something. But it's so hard to break it. I've got the awareness part tick. What's next? How do I do this?
No, I keep coming back. You always have a few favorite kind of inspirational people or people that you connect with and
Yeah.
speak your language. Which is funny though, because I had a very nice conversation with a lady this morning. What did she call herself? A old new ager or something like that. And she brought up some names that I've never heard. A lady that we know, Abraham Hicks, for example, but this lady was long before Abraham, and this lady channeled a Tibetan person. I wrote Alice Bailey.
Oh, wow.
She died in the 40s, and so Sue had all these other reference points that's even just as amazing. But now coming back to what I was going to say is Joe Dispenza talks about you have to practice. So you can't focus on these things that you don't want, because that's exactly what you'll attract then. So
yes,
he says we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts every day. And your mind can't differentiate between the thought and the reality. So the shortcut is to practice the thoughts that you want instead of trying to change the ones you don't want.
Oh, wow.
Which, it takes practice, and you have to, it's difficult because comfort zones are such a great thing, aren't they?
Yeah, I actually hate those things.
Yeah, me too. That's why I always push, but it's also so comfortable to push out of your comfort zone.
But it's that one thing that is the most fearful or unknown that will set us free.
Yes. But it's hard work.
I understand.
Yeah.
So with the patterns part, so would you say it links then very nicely with the mindfulness of being in that moment of sitting there with your thoughts, but automatically you said it's quite difficult to pick the ones that, so is there a way to stop, or make a cut to that?
Well, what I like about, I only started meditating about a year and a half, 2 years. I don't know, time has kind of gone now. I said 6 months ago the other day, and I realized that we were in lockdown for 6 months, so it must be 6 months. But not so long ago. And what I learned through it was that sometimes you just have to let it pass and distance yourself. So what he does a lot in his meditations is you see your surroundings, and then you see yourself as nothing and no one in space. So there are no thoughts, and then you bring yourself back and you imagine, you feel, you build emotions. Like Eckhart Tolle says, it's emotions is the reactions to the mind.
Yes.
So
Listen to those.
but you can trick the mind by doing the emotion first.
Yes. Okay.
So
Okay.
feeling the excitement of walking on the beach,
Yes.
your mind then goes, well, I'm happy now.
Okay.
You can change that pattern of whatever it is, that those bad thoughts that you might be dealing with, or it's easy for anybody that's ever dealt with depression or anxiety. I think all of us have in some way.
Anxiety.
To break. Well, they say anxiety is the fear of the
Future
future,
related.
and
Yeah.
depression is from the past. So to break that, you have to not focus on it, not try and change it necessarily, but try and focus on what you really want instead of what you don't want.
And we tend to, and this is so true what you're saying, we tend to focus on the what we don't want, what we don't have. So that what all the on the more of the negative side, and my opinion of it is it's because it's the easiest, in my opinion.
It's known, isn't it?
Yes.
So we know what we
don't want.
But we know. So I've bought a book the other day.
Yeah.
I want to write my perfect day, my ideal day.
Yes.
But do you know how difficult that is?
It takes forever.
Yeah.
But if you had to write your not perfect day.
Yeah, that's much easier because I've had a few of those.
It's so true. It's so true. So what would you say people like, what can we do? Do we journal? Do we change negatives into positives? Is that even possible?
I don't think we're all the same.
Good.
So, I don't think we can say, oh, you know what you must do? You must journal at 6 o'clock every morning, or you must, I don't know, meditate for an hour every day.
Yeah.
You must do yoga, or you must. I think it's when I started studying psychology and I started going on this road, and the thing that really stuck with me was that you can't help someone that doesn't want to be helped.
Yes.
And you can't change something if you don't know it needs to be changed. So it's the awareness, it's realizing that you need to make a change. And then I kind of feel that your ways come to you instinctively.
I always say the answer comes from within.
It does.
I always say that, and everyone thinks I'm crazy.
No, I think you hear what you need to hear when you need to hear it. And Joe Dispenza is not for everyone. Neither is teachers are attract different students, and different students find meaning from different.
Just a question. You've obviously read Viktor Frankl.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's probably my favorite book in the world.
As long as we're on the same page about that. Yes. It kind of links very nicely into all of this. So that's why I bring it up. Based on
purpose, isn't it? So his whole thing was there is no suffering if you have purpose, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, it is that. If you don't, it is that. There is no suffering if you do have purpose, because that's how you got through the times of the camps.
Yes.
Yeah. So the crazy thing is, if you don't mind, I would love to share those resources with other people. There might be the ones that you keep referencing, because I really find value in that. So I think that, like you said, whoever wants to pick up from that, they can take that, and it's just about creating that awareness in that sense. Would you say, so how did this whole smoking thing for me happen? Like, would you say, how did I break this pattern?
Well, I did
a hard one.
Thing.
I know
I smoked in May, and you asked me last time how long I smoked. I actually started smoking when I was 20, so 23 years on and off. Obviously, I had children in between, so at that times. And you were ready, weren't you? Do you still miss it?
I'm gonna say this. I know we're recording, but when when I have a drink or so, it's weird because it's a behavioral pattern, and a thought pattern there and then. So when the drinking starts, then you want that. It's literally a pattern. It's a comfort thing for me. I don't know how to explain.
And have you ever imagined actually smoking it when you have a drink? So have you imagined smoking and tasting it? Have you? Yeah, obviously. I went through that, and then one day, I just after the last lockdown ended, I decided, well, then I'm just going to roll myself a cigarette. I really want to. And I had one drag, and I was like, no, thank you. I don't want. This is disgusting. And it was just, I kind of knew it was going to happen, but if I didn't do it, I would have craved it.
Even more.
And but now I'm over it. Now I really don't even miss it. I miss the fact that I could go around the corner and be alone.
that space that it creates, break in your pattern or in your routine.
Yeah. But as you did it in lockdown, didn't you? So it was kind of like, well, let's challenge ourselves a little bit more.
Why not?
We're halfway there.
We're already being challenged on a daily basis of being in the house. So
let's make it interesting.
My husband went crazy, I think. I'm not going to lie. So what happened with me is, and I think we spoke about this, so I'm just going to share, is the fact that I was, the end goal was to be free of something, was what kept me going, if that makes sense. So that feeling of freedom, of I'm in control of this specific thing that I'm doing to myself. And I figured out, I was like, why am I smoking? You always ask that, why are you smoking? I'm filling a void. What void am I filling? And that's how I went through it. So I still don't have the full answer. It's a bit weird. I don't have the full answer, but that freedom feeling is what's keeping me going. But there's something you're trying to do.
When you started, wasn't that the same reason why you started? Because it was, I can smoke. I have the choice.
It's my choice to smoke.
My choice to smoke. So it was a reverse of what you did now by stopping, because you became the slave to the smoking, where for me it was, you were young and you weren't supposed to smoke, so I'm going
to do it. Yes,
my life, and I can make my own choices. And now it's the reverse, because now I'm a little bit, I realize that it's maybe not so good, and my skin's going yellow, and
my hands stink, my hair stinks.
Yeah. I wake up in the mornings and it's just like, oh, why did I do that again?
Yes.
So I think it's kind of a way, as you say, releasing yourself from a pattern.
That's amazing. And what you said is actually speaks very nicely to, I think, the quote or the reference you were making to, the collection. So it's the collection of all those patterns that we've built, right? Basically, I was able to start with the same purpose or the same, area, and I ended with that same thing.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you say, based on that little, observation, wouldn't you say based on that, you could possibly break other sorts of patterns?
I think you can. Was it
obviously depending on the person?
Henry Ford that said, if you think you can, what did he say? Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, our minds are amazing. So we can do anything if we have the right reasons. I think Viktor Frankl's whole thing was also that they can take anything away from me, but they can't take my reason or my
meaning to live.
Yeah.
That's
meaning. Yeah.
That's amazing. So when it comes to, would you say you can free yourself from, so like you said, so through this conversation, we've spoken about it's so much easier to do the I don't like or the negative. Okay. We always, in our minds, we always tend to focus on thinking of the negative stuff. We tend to gravitate towards that. The behavior, we tend to gravitate towards that too. So my question is how and can we go away from the negative thoughts?
Yes, of course, because we can practice anything. any, practice makes perfect. So that's
Yes.
what meditation is one way to do that, is by practicing the good thoughts. So you
Yes.
sitting there, going through your ideal
Yes.
feelings, really, which kind of tricks your mind into reality. It makes your mind think that it's a reality. So I definitely believe that we can, but we need to have a good reason.
Okay. And other than meditation, is there anything else that you know of that could assist with those type of things, just off the top of your head?
I think it's different for everybody. I don't think
Yeah.
everybody can do. I know my husband says he can't meditate. I don't think
My
he's
husband too.
very well. Yeah. I know. But for him, it's, I don't know,
Doesn't
apparently
work.
thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, I think journaling, a lot of people believe that journaling is
Yes.
very good. A gratitude, like being grateful, practicing gratitude, things like that, focusing on things you are grateful.
Yeah.
I don't think, just we can't be positive all the time. I mean, we have bad days and we have good days, and that's okay. Um,
Yeah.
it's more about being kind to ourselves and realizing that we are all different, and not all the same things work for the same people.
Everybody.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What I liked is this practice word has literally followed me through 5 sessions. This is the 5th session that I'm hearing the word practice come up. So I've clustered this 5 sessions into 2 words. It's a practice and a discipline.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what it is. We need to practice. So pattern, you said it's repetitive, right?
Yeah.
So it's practice to sort out that repetitiveness, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you were speaking about sitting really with your thoughts and your emotions on that yoga mat or through meditation. And I don't know if I got to speak to you about this, what happens when I, go into meditation. I've got a net, an invisible
Oh,
net.
yes, it is. Yes. Do share, because it's very interesting.
And I don't know, it will work for some and maybe not work for others, but it's working for me. So I have a net, a visible net when I meditate, and I sit. And now that you said, you've given me an answer in a sense, or not an answer, to say clarity. You've given me clarity where this was actually talking, my emotions was actually speaking, and it was popping up into my net. So what was happening? I was feeling, so a thought would come into my mind. Let's say the sky is blue. I'm giving really, it's a lot of deep stuff, obviously. Yeah. So the sky's blue. And then my emotions would be like, oh, that makes me feel, sad, whatever. And then I would have this like argument or discussion between those things. And then the net would say, it starts to filter all those thoughts. So my thoughts are just firing off. I'm a visual person, so I can feel all these things going crazy in my head, like these thoughts, da, 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 da. And then it starts to filter through this net, and the net catches what I want to focus on, and the others let go. And maybe some of those that let go in the net come back in another session, but it wasn't the time or the right place, or that moment wasn't fit for that thought.
Yeah.
So that's what's been happening to me is I've been using this invisible net thing that I've got. It's not a superpower, if anyone is wondering.
It might be.
Who knows? But it's really helped me deal with my thoughts, because like I said, when I spoke to you, I had the anxiety. I was, on the verge of anorexia, as the smoking. It was a lot.
Yeah.
Like, the journey has been a lot, and a lot to me, because it might not be a lot to some. So, that's just the reality. And I went through all of that, and I was like, I cannot live in the future anymore. And I cannot blame my past anymore. So where do I sit? Right here, right now, and filter through my thoughts. And through time, while you filter through those thoughts and those emotions, you actually realize that you start to learn so much about yourself. You really start to have that clarity about who you are. I feel like when I stand with, how do I explain? I don't know how to explain. Like you stand
Confidence, isn't it? Yeah.
with clarity.
Yeah.
Don't know how to explain it. That's why we're here, right? Is having these chats. Maybe people can help me explain what's going on my journey.
Sometimes it's not a cognitive thing. Sometimes it's something that maybe doesn't have an explanation, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's moving away from perceptions. I know you've been talking a lot to people about perceptions as well.
Yeah.
And we want to fit into other people's boxes, but we shouldn't try. And yeah,
True.
there's a lot more to kind of we're not as black and white as I think sometimes we want to think we are.
Yeah, we because we want to put ourselves into clusters, don't we, and labels
Yeah.
and all of that. And essentially, I always say to my husband, I didn't fall in love with you, I fell in weird with you. So because that's something when someone says, "Oh, you're so weird," I'm like, "Thank you." I literally say thank you, and some people are like, "Whoa, I don't want to be weird." You know what I mean? And it's just
I'm
because it's so
teaching my children
comfortable.
we like weird.
Really?
Yeah. So when they call each other weird, then the other one says, "Thank you."
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I think that's such a nice space to play in, like and to be in, essentially, because that's when you really start to live, I think.
Yeah, we have to give ourselves permission, don't we? Because
Yeah.
especially when I kind of came over here and you had to find work, and it's the industry is so different, yeah, especially in psychometrics and all that.
Yes.
That you automatically feel a bit like a failure, don't you? Because
Yes.
you don't get that job, but they want you to sell stuff, so it's not really, it's not your box to fit in. So, but you're trying because you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you force it and you actually become so unhappy, and that's when the anxieties and depressions and you're living in all those spaces. So
Yeah.
I like what you're saying, Michelle. It's actually singing. It's clarifying some things in my mind now. So basically, if you have, you don't live in that future and that past, and you're living in the present, you can actually make better decisions. You can react better. You can think more clearer because your thoughts aren't there or there. They're literally here. And that scares
Yeah.
people.
Well, Eckhart Tolle says there is no suffering in the present. It's all in the past or in the future. So, yeah, we have to plan, and you have to remember, because, so now where does the now fit in? Where am I?
Where am I?
Who am I?
That's crazy. Yeah, who am I? Where am I? What am I? Then eventually start on that journey. And that's really the journey that I'm on, to be quite honest with you. As much as I was like self-aware and I know who I am, and no.
Well, I had a very interesting discussion about this the other day. It's not really who I am; it's who I want to be, and that's kind of, um, who I am is a perception. I was listening to this today. He was saying, "What no one knows you because it's all a perception." I'll tell you now. My mind cannot know you, only factual judgments about you. So, he was talking about the tree. You cannot know the tree. You only know factual things about it. That's the
Wow.
same with people. I
Yeah.
cannot really know you. I can only know perceptions that I have of you.
And based on what I project.
Exactly.
Based on what I project, and we're just bouncing all these things off. And while we're bouncing this off and projecting, we're building those walls and those walls and those walls, and we're moving further and further and further away from who we truly are or
Yeah.
meant to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're on the same page on that. Awesome. So do you have like an example of like a practical example of like a pattern of thought or a pattern of behavior? Because you spoke about the smoking and all of that, but do you
Yeah.
have like a practical example?
I think there's quite a few. I mean, I had anorexia for 4 years, and it's a bit of both. So it's a pattern of thought. It's a pattern of, I'm not good enough. But if I get thinner, or if I become this other person, then I will be good enough.
Yeah.
Um, and it perpetuates. So, but it never gets to the point where, okay, I'm good enough.
Yeah.
Same with the kind of OCD, you have to switch the light switch 5 times, or so it's all patterns of when am I going to be good enough? Coming back to I am enough. I don't know if you've ever heard of Marisa Peer. She started this I am enough, hashtag I'm enough.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
If you say hashtag, I know.
Yeah.
I'm very honest. Yeah.
She works a lot with hypnosis, so self-hypnosis and things like that. And she also has a background in anorexia, and it's breaking that pattern. Another great thing that I discovered is called Psych K. Rob Williams is actually the guy that developed it, and it is changing patterns, really. What's the word? I'll send you some more about it.
Yeah, please do. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of changing the pathways of the brain. So you decide on I am enough, for example.
Yeah.
And you repeat this to yourself, and there's little body tricks that you do for your body to accept this belief. And
Wow.
He also talks about it a lot. He's a very interesting guy. He believes the Matrix was a documentary. And
I know a lot of people who believe that.
Yeah. So he did the Psyche, and after the Psyche, he published his first book. And because he struggled to kind of get it from where it was to being published.
Yeah.
And he's a biologist.
Oh, wow.
Very interesting guy. Yeah.
So you're going to send us all of this, Michelle, because I know you are like so resourceful. And if there's those, obviously things that stick that we've spoken about, or that stick within the, the themes, the mindful, anything, it doesn't just have to be about patterns. It can be about anything, honestly. Because the last time we spoke, you gave me 3 people, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but you gave me 3 people. It was Lipton.
Yes, it's the 3 amigos. So it's
Yes.
Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden.
Yes.
And they all 3 of them are a little bit different. Greg Braden went to quite a lot of these hidden cultures, kind of tribe people that don't, they're not on social media and they don't have websites, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Ancient cultures, and he's amazing as well. So.
Awesome. And then can you tell us about Lipton? Because we've spoken about...
Bruce Lipton is the guy that is so crazy about Psyche. He actually worked with Rob Williams for a while. He's a biologist, and he wrote... his whole thing is about the feelings. So he wrote, his book is called The Honeymoon Effect.
Yes, I remember that.
When you fall in love, you have all these good feelings and everything's amazing. So his theory is that that's how we should live. We should find a way to fall in love with life, really, and live in this honeymoon effect.
Yes. People told me, I don't know if it was in this work or previous work, but they said you smile a lot. You smile a lot. I'm like, well, you don't smile enough.
Yeah, this is a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought this was a good thing. I'm quite happy. I thought this was a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting what you're saying. So the other thing is that I wanted to ask is, so with the whole patterns and behavior, is there so with the smoking, we broke that pattern, right? We broke that pattern. Would you say that your thoughts would be your first pattern, then your behavior? So do we do the thinking part first and then the behaving, or do we do so it can link to cognitive behavioral therapy? I don't know, but I'm just going in those. I just want to know for my own reference.
So different theories also on that. So Joe Dispenza, for example, goes the other way. He says we must find the emotion first.
Okay.
And he focuses a lot on the heart. So we have to feel it before we can believe it.
Okay.
Which makes a bit of sense because your mind is like a computer.
Yes.
And you want to prime it so that you can add that new hardware. And the best way to do that is to do it by feeling it, because we're emotional beings more than we are analytical, I think. So I think it's more of a emotion. It starts with behavior, which would your emotion. If you're happy, you're going to smile.
Yeah.
Which is
then
a
you
behavioral.
can go the other way.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
We like to be in autopilot. So for us to break that pattern of what we're doing is a
Why
little
do you think we do that, Michelle? Why do you think we like
comfort
that?
zone, isn't
Is it
it?
the comfort zone?
I think so. It's easy to be in a comfort zone.
Yeah, and it's just so strange because that's part of the reason I'm in the UK is myself and my husband, we would just do the same thing. The routine was there for long periods of time. And one day I just said, I can't do this. I can't carry on like this. And I'm an adventurer. I have this feeling, it's called your instinct, that thing is shouting and I need to do this. And then you never know where this adventure takes me. It's people, I think we all have it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us fear it. But the minute you become comfortable or stagnant is where you hinder or stop growing, in my opinion. That's where we stop growing. The more you get out of that comfort zone, the more you add to your toolbox, personal or professional.
I think people are also different, and I always try and understand it from other people's perspective, because obviously I can only understand it from mine.
Yes.
In a way, you have people that are very happy following their routine and
Exactly.
living in the same town and doing it the way that it's always been done,
Yeah.
while others aren't. So I'm not exactly sure
There's a
why.
one
Are they
size
really
fits
happy,
all.
or are they just in a comfort zone?
That's a very difficult question to actually get at face value, I would say.
Yeah.
It would be very difficult because what we depict at face value is completely different of what we're dealing with internally.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, someone living in the Himalayas that hasn't ever been away from there might be perfectly happy.
Yeah. So then it's the question of if you're not happy in that comfort zone, probably you should do something about it. Kind of
Most
thing.
definitely.
I just say probably because, some people are fearful to do something about
Yeah.
it. That's the thing. So it's a bit difficult. Have you ever done any type of coaching or, counseling of any sort?
No,
Oh,
so
past?
within psychometry, I used to do feedbacks,
Yeah.
assessments, but I always feel that you have to be, don't know.
Different. You have to have the specific qualities, I would say.
Yes, and you must come from a place where I suppose it's more probably a comfort zone thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have any resources or reference to this comfort zone thing? Because I think that's actually something very good to go into,
Yeah.
linking to this topic.
Nice. I will have a look. I can't think of,
Yeah.
it kind of it falls back onto fear, isn't it? So when we move away from, when our self-image is threatened by things that happen around us, it's
Yeah.
easy for us to kind of go back into the fear trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering because now that you say that's actually such a nice, I don't know, writing or something to go deeper into is that comfort thing, especially with the current time that we're in.
Yes. I
So,
think a
yeah.
lot of people have been shaken, and it's interesting to see the general kind of response to what's happening. People are experiencing it so differently.
Yeah, that's very true. And Dawn, is there anything you'd like to ask? Anything you'd like to add from your side? Anything you've learned or taking from this?
Well, I just wanted to mention that the Matrix is from a course called Landmark Education. And it's a course that I did. And when you go on to the third course, I think it is, it's the Self-Expression Leadership Program. And in that course, you create something. And the guys who created the film took all the fundamental basics of the Landmark Education and created the film.
No.
So it is a documentary.
In so many words. Wow, that's very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. The course you're referring to, where do you get access to that, Dawn?
So it's in person and so probably not running at the moment. It's called Landmark Education. And the first course is just really looking at how the past, freeing the past so that it doesn't dictate your future.
Wow.
Because we know, you know that you have an issue that you're taking into your future with you every single day. And sometimes you don't know what that is that you've taken from the past. It could be that a teacher when you were 3 said to you that you're really very silly.
Yes.
And then you took that very silly and you took it into your adult life and you still think you're silly.
Yes.
So it's about finding that.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty impressive. And
Wow.
and then brilliant course. I loved it.
Okay. And you don't know if they're doing it online. I'll go research it a bit.
They won't do it online because the process is about, there's about 100 of you in the room, and you have a person on the stage who starts with the process and talks about issues. And then if you want to go up and get coaching at the front of the room, then you can get coaching, and then other people have the penny drop for them watching the coaching. So even if you don't feel like you want to go onto the stage and be part of the process, but eventually by the end you do.
Oh, wow.
That's what's holding you back too sometimes, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. It's exactly what we're all talking about now. So that links very nicely, actually.
Yeah. And you went and experienced it.
Yeah. So I did the Landmark Forum, which is the first one. And then I did the advanced course. And then I did the self-expression leadership program.
Wow.
Which, brilliant, really good. And they all have so the self-expression leadership is about taking a community that you are involved in and transforming that community.
Oh, wow. So very practical, I can hear. Practical. It's not just like a study, online type of course that you're doing. It's a practical, real experience, if we want to call it.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for sharing, Dawn.
No problem.
Yes. So, Michelle, anything else you'd like to add based on patterns? Anything we've missed that we, wanted to cover?
I just know that Dawn said that. I don't know if you've ever heard of mirror neurons. So we have this thing, all humans, if we see someone else getting something right, we believe that we can. And that's why a lot of people train or teach through testimonials. So you'll hear someone say, I quit smoking. And then you realize, oh, but if she can do it, then I can do it.
Yes.
Which is quite an amazing way to break those patterns, because we often feel that I can't do it. I'm just Michelle,
Yes.
but I know Dawn and she could do it. So then maybe I could do it because I can identify with her, which is a mirror neuron.
Oh, wow. That is so interesting.
Yeah.
That is so interesting. I've never heard of that. I always used to say it's like not a chameleon, but kind of like a chameleon type of thing. You see someone and you change to what,
Yeah. But it's actually a neuroscientific
it's
fact
actual. That's what's
brain processes it in that way, which is amazing. It makes us more connected, doesn't it?
Wow.
Because we are all part of a big whole.
A big connection.
Big connection, yes.
Energy, I always call it. That was my first talk, was energy, talking about energy, and it all kind of links to each other.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Awesome. And from your side, how would you say, so we've spoken about the mindfulness and the meditation in the patterns. Do you want to add anything, how that links, the mindfulness and patterns? Anything else to add?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's awareness, isn't it? We can't change something if we don't know about it, and we can't know about it if we don't stop and be mindful of where we are. So it's coming back to that being in the now. Yeah. We can't really move forward if we're in the past.
Yeah. Perfect. And so you're meditating, you said, prior to this, so you've been doing it for about 2 years?
Yes. It's so much fun sometimes that I have to stop because you don't want to come back to reality.
I know, you crave it.
Yeah, so I do it intermittently, really.
Wow.
I find it's such an amazing tool. There's so much out there, in there, really.
Yeah. In there, but out here. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It feels like you're going into another space.
Yes. Well, kind of, if you look at quantum physics, then I mean, it's all there.
Yes, it's about seeing it.
That's it. Yeah.
And through what eyes are you seeing it through?
Yeah.
And what have you built through your childhood and your experience and all of that? And if you can get rid of that and then see something, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my goal, at least, because I can preach and say, I've experienced this and I've experienced that. It's probably been once in my whole life that I've experienced that that I can't, there's no word to explain that feeling. Really.
No, it's amazing. And I mean, sometimes there's color, or you see, amazing.
Yeah. And I always say that's the vibrations, and then people are like, this lady's crazy. I'm like, thank you.
I'm here always.
I always say thank you. That's a
gratitude. It's great.
Yes, so that's a new thing. Like, thank you, for seeing me for who I am. Yeah, awesome. So from my side, I've covered all my areas. I'm just going to go through. So we've defined patterns. We spoke about the pandemic. What's interesting for me is how this is going to play out in terms of the patterns of behavior and thought. So yes, it's been altered through this pandemic, but what is going to stick is the very $1 million.
I feel we have to be very careful what we let in, kind of, there's a lot of fear out there, and it's quite dangerous to let that fear in.
And know what I know what you mean. Like when this whole pandemic happened, that I was like, yay, I've got time to do these things, that. But then you start to get into this thing and you're like, oh no, and you start to fear. So I can relate. Yeah, we've all gone through our own journey, I think, in this whole process, to be honest.
Yeah. But I mean, it is such an amazing time to kind of invent what and who and how and the whole thing.
I always say I'm busy so it's reshape, re-energize, and then the lady in the session 4 said something, and I can't, re-engineering, she said.
Ah, yes. Re-engineering your DNA.
We're re-engineering it all. And it's a good time. I think it's a good time to see where we're going, and we can't say, but what's interesting is trust the process. The process.
Exactly.
Trust your process, at least.
That you want, not focus on the patterns you don't want.
I think that's the biggest key takeaway that I'm going to take from this, to be very honest with you, because I'm not going to sit here saying, oh, I've only focused on what I want. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm literally saying that I think I've been focusing on everything I don't want.
Well, it's natural. I mean, that's what I don't want it, so that's what I think about. It's kind of the change of perspective.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do, like, because this works for me, obviously, and everyone works differently. So it would be interesting, like, if people could share that at some point, and we'll get to that eventually. But my thing is, I think I'm going to write, what do I want, on just a piece of paper? And then I'm going to, because my brain works, what do I want on a personal level? What do I want in my marriage? What I want, and I'm just going to start somewhere. But my question is, what do I want? I think that's what I'm really going to take from this, and not what don't I want, because I've done this exercise with what do I have, and what don't I have. I've done that, and then that's how I started the gratitude. So really just focusing, and some people don't understand, like my husband doesn't understand, I didn't have a job for so long, right? So now I got a salary for a service that I'm doing, right? So he's like, what are you going to get? And I'm like, I haven't even thought about that. I have no clue, because I'm just content is the word. I don't know, with what I have. We need to be content with what we have for the day that we have, because I've always said this, when every single time that sun comes up, that's your cue, and that's my cue to say, New day, new something, new. It's just new. You can't go to yesterday and you can't go to tomorrow. And I always say this, what was then is not now, and what was now is not the, in future.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always get that mixed up, but if you know where I'm going with that. And essentially that's it.
Well, it's something that works quite well for me too, is, sometimes you think, my house is so small and my children are noisy and, and all the things that are bad. And then I think, I live someone else's dream life. There's someone that's sitting somewhere without a house, without food, in the cold. They would give anything to be in my position,
Yes,
So
yes. And it helps you.
It does, yeah. It kind of gives you a little bit or for me, it gives me a little bit of a different perspective on, where you are, I suppose.
Thank you so much. Oh, I can talk for hours, but I just wanted to say, Michelle, from my side, thank you so much. This is the last chat. I literally get goosebumps thinking about it, because it's been such a insightful, if I can just say it in a few words, insightful, meaningful, purposeful conversations or journey that I've been on. I started the journey saying, I know these things about myself. I know that. You always know everything, right? And in actual fact, I've learned that I know nothing, and that's amazing.
That's a good place to be.
Yeah, that's amazing. The fact that I thought, and I'm like, I chose this speaker and I chose that speaker, and the value that came from the speakers is not what I had seen at online value, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that online presence was, just the little tip of the iceberg, and the rest, it's been such a journey. So from my side, Michelle, like, my heart is filled with love and gratitude in this moment. And I'm very grateful that you've decided to walk on this journey with me. Oh, there's someone joining us now.